Hi, welcome to another video of Game of Thrones Academy. Hi Tamar.
Hi.
What we do is we look at A Song of Ice and Fire through the lenses of real history and real political processes. Then we can learn something new about the story and hopefully learn a little bit of history along the way. Today we have a very cool episode. We're going to talk about history in general and history in A Song of Ice and Fire. So the question is, Itamar, if you could ask George R.R. Martin one question, because you want to find out what happens in the next two books, would it be who will sit on the Iron Throne?
No.
No. Who is Jon's real mother?
No.
Will Tyrion get to sit on Casterly Rock, maybe?
No.
Okay.
You said one question.
One question,
If
okay.
I would add one question, I would ask, who is your favorite character? No. George.
Yes, I'm George.
Can I have your autograph? No. I want to know how he sees history, how he understands history.
Meaning?
Meaning, does he see history as an endless cycle between death and rebirth, or decline or ascension, decline, ascension, decline, like an endless cycle with no end? Or maybe he sees history as of course there is this cycle, but there is a certain progress. There is a difference between certain eras of time. There is a historical process towards something that is different from the past.
Progress?
Progress. We have to be careful about this word progress.
Because it's not always for the better?
Yeah, progress. We have a certain understanding about progress, that something is new is better than the old. It's not necessarily.
Okay, but a change.
But a change, yeah. A change, always change. Always, the past is always different from the present and the future. And we are moving towards something.
Okay, so what is the difference between the two ways of looking at history? That history always repeats itself, or that it always changes?
Let's talk maybe a little bit about the concept of history repeating itself.
Okay.
I think it's something like it's a meme that is very popular. It can explain maybe a lot of stuff that happened in the present. You say, yeah, well, history repeats itself. It's the same thing. Okay. Something kind of a conventional wisdom, which I think no serious, and I'm not one of them, but no serious historian really can agree with that history repeats itself. Basically, to make a prediction using history, it's not scientific, because history is not a science in that sense. When you look at history, first of all, it's based on written documents. So first of all, you need to ask the question, who wrote that, for whom, who paid him, what is his agenda. Can we tell a different story?
And you can see that also in the books, that people are telling the story from different perspective, and you have historians.
Yeah. Like when I read the Tyrion chapters in Storm of Sword, when he started his fall from grace, and we as readers know he did a terrific job as head of king. He practically saved the kingdom, and saved the house, and saved the city. But history maybe will remember Tyrion as a cruel ruler, as an imp, as a deformed individual, as a monster that maybe killed Joffrey,
right, and his
father, of course. And I remember when I read that stuff about Tyrion, I remembered when I read I, Claudius by Robert Graves.
It's a fiction?
It's a fiction, historical fiction about one of the first emperors of the Roman Empire, which history remembered him as a deformed individual, like he stuttered and no one took him seriously. This is what the book tells.
Is it true you've written a book about the religious changes during the reign of Augustus?
Yes, mother.
And that you intend to give a public reading of it?
Yes, mother.
You'll do no such thing?
Oh, mother.
So why did you think about Tyrion when you read that?
Because Claudius, I think that the popular image about Claudius was that kind of a person.
What kind of a person?
Like a bad ruler, like a deformed
But
individual.
in the books?
Later historians that judged Claudius as an emperor by different standards said, well, he was a good king. He was a good emperor. So this conventional wisdom, history repeats itself. No, history doesn't repeat itself. But maybe if we look at it in the bird's eye view, and so we can find patterns and trends, and we are a pattern-seeking people species.
Right.
And every A Song of Ice and Fire fan feel the need to extrapolate something from the text and look at patterns, what this means and this means and that means. But history is not something like that. History is basically a factory of random events, small random events, that only after a long period of time you can look back and find a certain pattern and tell your story. But another historian can come and tell a different story with the same facts. So here, what we do here? We use history as a kind of a guide to unlock the code of the story. So we have to use historical analogies.
We like to use
We like it, but something I tell my students all the time, that they need to be careful of historical analogies.
Why?
Because every historical analogy is shallow and inaccurate.
Every historical analogy?
Every historical analogy.
Why?
Because if you want to compare something to something else, you need to choose categories, certain categories. If you want to make an exact copy, you have to compare DNA to DNA, gene to gene, hair to hair, and then you will come to a conclusion and say, no, it's totally different.
Why? Because maybe it's 400
so let's
years later?
Let's pick a bad historical analogy.
Okay.
Like the Tea Party in America. It's a protest against taxes on tea.
From the crown back in England.
From the crown. So it's like something like a symbol of freedom. You know, Tea Party is a symbol of freedom. No taxation without representation. So in a sense, they're telling us Obama is like George the Third or something like that, which was the British king back then.
Foreign king. Obama is a foreign king.
Yeah, Obama is foreign. They don't have representation. That was they are telling us. They don't have representation like they have politicians, and so it's a bad historical analogy. You can't. But if you choose in certain criterias, you can maybe make a prediction, like the Arab Spring. They named it the Arab Spring based on the Spring of Nation of 1848.
Which was?
In Europe in 1848, which was like the awakening of the nations, like the national state, and in some places they wanted democracy, in some places in Europe they wanted socialism, in some places they want
the people.
The people wanted freedom from foreign occupiers. And it was like the precursor of the modern European nations. So a lot of people took that term and placed it on the Arab Spring. So they used criteria like there is a dictatorship and a regime that doesn't share the power, it doesn't represent most of the people. And from the bottom up, there is a populist movement that topples this regime, and something else replaces it.
And why is that a bad analogy?
You define this process as the Arab Spring, automatically we think about it as something positive.
Democratic.
Yeah, democracy is coming to the Middle East. But if you want to use it to make your political statement from the different direction, you can say, it's like the Islamic revolution in Iran, and we all know how it ended, so be careful.
Iran.
Be careful. So everyone wants to use their analogies
based on their existing...
on their prejudgment.
Okay, do you have an example maybe of a better historical analogy?
Yeah, a good historical analogy, maybe comparing the internet and social media to the printing press revolution, or the printing revolution.
Okay.
Technology was totally different. It's different purposes.
Yeah.
But if you choose a certain criteria, which says a technological tool which helps to spread information
Knowledge.
faster and knowledge faster, quickly,
To more people.
to more people, from that rapid transformation of information, you can see social change and political change and religious change a few decades after that. If you compare that to the internet as a technological tool of spreading information, which maybe in a long perspective of time will cause social change. So after all what I said about good analogies and bad analogies, you can multiply it by 10 million, okay, when we are talking about fiction. Okay.
When finding historical
Finding
analogies
historical analogies to a work of fiction
by one person.
by myself, but not only
No,
by
no, no.
myself.
It's
but
the fiction of one person.
It's a fiction of one person.
His own imagination.
His own imagination.
In the books, how do you see like which time in history is it placed?
Well, I think we established it that he's placed his story in the Middle Ages. And when I read about the characters and about their perception of time is very familiar to the medieval perception of time.
Okay.
It was different from our contemporary.
They had a different perception of time
different
itself.
perception of time and history.
How can that
They
be?
didn't see time as something that is moving forward.
Linear? It wasn't linear?
No. They saw time as a circle, as an endless circle. The endless circle of seasons and occurrences. It's always repeating themselves. There is a loop, an eternal loop.
Yeah, the sun
But
goes up, the sun goes down.
Yeah, but somewhere it can happen
It can
in
be.
a second, it can happen in 1,000 years. Somewhere, redemption will come. It will be the end of history.
The end of time.
End of time. The Messiah will come. The Jesus will come back, and there will be end of time and end of history. The people of the Middle Ages looked at the ancient people, and they perceived them as authority.
Even though they
we
lived-
are the contemporary,
Okay.
we cannot add to their wisdom. Like
And
if
back
I want to ask a question about reality, why do earthquakes come or stuff like that, I will find the answer in the scriptures. And if I want to make some assumption about the future, I will look at prophecies.
Do you have some examples of this perception of time? I think it's very cool that George R. R. Martin...
George R. R. Martin, maybe it's just my interpretation to his work, but I think he really entered this issue inside the characters. They always look to the past. What in their practical decisions concerning actual events,
Right.
they go backwards. It's very present. The past is very present. Past, very present.
Okay, I got you.
So the past is very present in this story. Like Tyrion wants to defeat Stannis' forces.
In the Blackwater?
In Blackwater Bay. He read history. He
read history.
What the ancient did. You have the example of Littlefinger.
Okay.
That is trying to avoid settling himself in Harrenhal. It can be maybe because Harrenhal is not now part of his plan, but he said, I think, in a few instances that everyone that went to Harrenhal later died, and because Harren the Black was burned alive there with his family, so there's some kind of a curse.
Okay. This is a great example because Littlefinger, he is the person, the most logical, analytical person. He's cold, he thinks about everything.
Very consequenceable. He's very consequenceable.
Yeah.
He looks about the consequences.
And he thinks about everything he has like a 5-year plan. But then Harrenhal, I'm not gonna touch it because a few people died there. He's not bothering to check why they died, how they died, if it relates to him.
Besides that, we have prophecies. We have the factor of prophecies in the story, in the people's life. They always look back at prophecies.
Like
so the
Cersei.
Bleeding Star, of course, it relates to the Azor Ahai prophecy.
And everyone has their own interpretation of the
everyone
Bleeding
has
Star.
the Bleeding Star is the Stannis, no, the Bleeding Star is the dragon, no, the Bleeding Star is, I don't know, menstrual blood or something like that.
Cersei has her prophecy.
Cersei has her prophecy about
Maggie
the Frog, the Valonqar will murder her. So who is this Valonqar? It's Tyrion. It's
and all her kids will die.
And notice that not only the characters break their mind trying to solve these prophecies as well. The fans try to break their mind and argue and fight over and kill each other.
Every word.
Who is John?
Valonqua!
No,
Who is Valonqua?
It's Valonqua. It's not a Valonqua. So.
But it goes to your point about how it affects their decision. Cersei, her whole plan on what to do in the future, how to deal with her obstacles, is about something that was said to her 20 years ago, because
she fears.
She is sure it will happen.
She's like totally paranoid about Marjorie. Totally paranoid because Maggie the Frog said a younger queen, more beautiful than you, will replace you and take. So
we don't have that in our perception of time. Somebody
if George W. Bush would have said, I declared war on Iraq because God have told me. Oh wait, bad example. Let's say if Obama would make his healthcare plan because he read in some scriptures that in this time you need to.
That Jesus healed the poor.
You don't see it. Here you see people say, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, but I'm adding something to the shoulder of giants. I'm standing on their shoulders, but they were wrong. They were wrong. I'm right because
I know more.
I know more.
Yeah, I know more, not they.
I know more, but I don't know. Like something about our thought about reality is coming from our admission of ignorance. We don't know, so we need to discover. This is something in medieval times wouldn't be possible. What do you mean you don't know? It's written here. And even Einstein, which may be one of the smartest people ever, he was wrong about certain times.
And that's fine.
And that's fine, yeah, and that's fine.
This is a great setup for our bold prediction. Every video ends with Itamar's bold prediction that is based on what we discussed.
Okay, my prediction is the cycle will break. The cycle of the perception of time, the cycle will break.
Why do you think that?
If we take that period, the late 15th century, and say that this is something George R. R. Martin wanted to tell us, like this is a watermark.
We have like the War of the Roses.
And in terms of technology and political systems.
Right.
That was a watershed mark of the change in that perception. Like the Renaissance, who were the first, I think, were the first people we know about them in history that looked towards the past and said they were wrong. They were wrong.
And the Renaissance is just
around the corner. I think you can say in certain aspects that it's already there in this world, this George R. R. Martin's world.
Where in Westeros?
Westeros, not yet, but in the free cities, you can see a start of a renaissance there.
So how will that go about in the books?
The cycle will break, and maybe the prophecies are not that important.
No, Itamar.
Yeah.
Itamar, don't say that. They're very important, the prophecies.
They are important.
Melisandre with her flames, everything is based upon prophecies.
So it's more like a wishful thinking on my part. Okay. But the prophecies, they are very important in terms of the characters themselves, the protagonists themselves, because it's influenced them and it works them up and it makes up the decisions. But maybe in the long story, like the big epic of the story, it's not that important.
So the Azor Ahai will not rule the world.
No, the Messiah will not come.
And the prince that was promised.
They will come, of course. They will come in the books. I'm not that idiot. Not that they will be in the books, of course. But if as a historical explanation to what happened, maybe they're not that important to the story as a whole.
In the big scheme.
Only maybe as an agent to bring us from that period to the next one.
No more prophecies.
No more prophecies and messiahs.
Okay, this is interesting. Thank you. Thank you everybody for watching. You can like, comment if you agree with Itamar's prediction about prophecies, if you don't agree with Itamar's predictions. I think it's a great prediction. And if you have something to add, be sure to comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye.
Bye.